There is a question that's been burning a hole in my soul for as long as I can remember. What does it actually take to live at full wattage? We get one shot at this life, and yet so many of us spend years dialing ourselves down, ignoring the things that make us come alive. I believe something powerful happens when we connect with who we are and what lights us up. We become electric. If you've been waiting for permission, consider this your sign. I'm Courtney Carnes. This is Full Wattage. Let's get into it. We usually know. We know what's true. We know what we want. The harder part is saying it out loud and acting on it. So why can that take years, even decades, to make a move? My guest today has spent more than 30 years finding the truth beneath other people's prepared answers. Tom Giles is an executive editor of Bloomberg's global technology team, leading more than 90 reporters and editors covering the people and companies shaping our world. He's also a lecturer of business journalism at UC Berkeley. But I know Tom beyond his title. We became friends years ago during an intensive fellowship and have stayed close ever since. I know Tom to be curious, analytical, generous, and when a friend is in need, he's usually the first person to show up. And I really genuinely love that about him. Recently, he did something that he had always wanted to do. He learned to scuba dive. And that made me curious about the relationship between knowing what we want and acting on it. And once we know what we want, what finally turns that someday into now? So this is a conversation about curiosity, truth, and what it takes to act on what we already know. Tom, welcome to Full Wattage.
Thanks for having me.
I'm pumped to have you, man. Thank you for saying yes.
You.
I know, likewise. So for those of you who don't know, Tom hopped in a car from San Francisco.
I hopped in a car.
He hopped in a car. I like that. I like that for you. You deserve the best, Tom. And he came down here to the Pro in Palo Alto, which is an iconic sports bar.
And pretty good beer.
And pretty good beer. We're just doing it right. We're living at full wattage and we're sitting in like a sportscaster type booth and going to have this conversation. Tom, let's dive in. Okay, this pun is actually intended. But I want to talk about the scuba diving. So after decades of wanting to learn to scuba dive, you finally recently got certified.
I took the plunge.
You took the
Let's
plunge.
keep that pun going.
Keep it rolling. Let's keep it rolling.
It.
So take me to that moment underwater when you first submerged and you were like, oh my gosh, I'm finally doing this.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
I got my first taste of scuba diving a really long time ago. It was on my honeymoon. We were in St. Lucia, and you can do a discovery dive, and you learn enough to go down about 30 feet and not die.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my first taste of it, and I was hooked. But you got to understand, I grew up swimming. We had a pool in our backyard. My family was not a wealthy family, but we lived in a house that had a pool. And the pool became, especially during the summer, a real refuge for me. It was a place where I could go to find peace. I could go underwater and shut out all the things about, growing up in a family where there was a lot of love, but there was a good, healthy amount of dysfunction. And
so a family.
So like real life. And I would find a lot of peace underwater, and it stayed with me. And that's the sport that I was drawn to. Never really great at it. For a while, I was doing a lot of open water swimming in San Francisco Bay, which is super cold, but super awesome. Being underwater, it's where I find a lot of peace, a lot of serenity, and a lot of anxiety management. And I think a relatively healthy way, because you're underwater. You can't have your phone with you, your computer. You can't have all the things we carry around that are constantly chasing us. All those things that I'm constantly thinking about, they melt away and I become enveloped in something.
But you love it and you wanted to return to it for so long. What kept you from
why
taking
couldn't
the
I
plunge?
just
Yeah.
Anybody who scuba dives knows that you've got to go through you've got to train in a pool, take online classes, then you do your checkout dive where they make sure that you learned everything you're supposed to learn.
Right.
And you're starting out in life, you're married, you start having kids, your career is taking off, and there was always something in the way. Whether it's budget constraints, kids. My wife and I traveled early in our marriage. We started out living in New York. We lived in London for a few years, moved to San Francisco. You start dealing with aging parents and kids. I poured my life and a lot of my identity into two things: my work and my kids. And I loved it. I have zero regrets about any of the time that I spent chasing my kids around the playground or taking them on lacrosse tournaments across the country. There was one year that I was like, I am going to go to every single one of my kids' lacrosse games. So you do these things and you have no regrets about them, but when you're in the midst of that, I wasn't thinking I'm going to invest a lot of my time learning how to scuba dive. And also, growing up with a good amount of Catholic guilt, you're like, I don't know, that's really self-centered. I got to be there for my team at work. I got to be there for my kids. I got to be there for my wife. And this feels a little self-indulgent.
That's a long list of excuses. Okay, so
I know. I'm really good at making.
I've got them too.
Yeah.
But you finally got underwater. Is there something that you discovered in yourself that was surprising to you when you finally got in the water and pursued this dream? Or are you learning something new about yourself and your identity in the process?
That I love the peace, the serenity. I also like that curiosity. I mean, we know more about outer space and the planets of the solar system than we do about, the world underwater, which covers 70% of the Earth's surface. Right. So there is that part of me that wants to discover and learn and identify plants and identify fish and sharks. And I'm at the very, very beginning stages of that. I'm not going to go and become a marine biologist or something like that.
No, but it's a passion.
There's that curiosity of like, what's that plant? Oh, look at that fish over there. And, it's like at some point you have to stop calling him Nemo and Dory, right? Right. Calling them by their real names.
A major theme that we've come across in these conversations is the value and benefit of doing something just for your own joy. And this is something for your own joy. It materially changes who you are and how you show up because now you're someone who moves on something that you've been passionate about for a long time.
Some of us grow up with a value that when you get married, you've got to do things that are really coupley.
Yeah.
And if you're going to invest a lot of time and energy, like it's got to be something that your spouse, your partner shares with you. When you have children, you need to do stuff as a family. And those are great values and I share them.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's nothing wrong with going out and doing that thing. I had this sense of like, that's really self-indulgent. That's expensive. We're on a budget.
But that's a narrative
that requires travel.
Yeah.
An investment of time and energy, which is just, it's kind of bullshit. But I clung to that for a really long time. It's really great for our kids to see us doing things that are very coupley. Mom and dad are going out to dinner. They're going on a date. They're going to the opera or whatever it is. I also think there's something really healthy for kids to see, hey, dad's pursuing his passion. Mom is going out there and pursuing her passions. She's hanging out with friends. She's doing stuff that she really enjoys. It gives her a lot of life, gives her energy, is feeding her intellect. That's super healthy too.
Yeah,
and they don't have to do it together every damn time.
Right. I think it gives permission to be both a collective and an individual.
Be your own person.
Yeah, I know who that is. Okay, I want to pivot to, in episode number 1 of Full Wattage, I sat with Bonnie Wan, who's the author of The Life Brief, and we talked about asking ourselves penetrating questions. And the penetrating questions that we ask ourselves really actually shape our life. And you've spent decades asking people questions that are designed to cut through the noise and beneath like the programmed answer to get to a story in what you do. So can you tell me a little bit about like what separates a question that sounds intelligent from one that actually opens something up in your work? And then we can maybe turn the mirror back on ourselves.
Yeah. As a journalist, it's my job to ask penetrating questions. Yeah. You said, whether I'm interviewing a source off the record to get stuff that they're not supposed to share with me or being on stage in front of a televised conversation, whatever the case may be, you can always turn a question into how can I make myself sound intelligent? How can I show how smart I am? Versus how can I take the side of the audience and be their proxy and try to use this less about showing that I'm intelligent and more about eliciting valuable information that the audience can use that this person may not want to share.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that go into getting that conversation to a place where they feel comfortable enough with you, safe enough with you, even when they're fully exposed in front of Lord knows how many people will listen to some conversation that you have. getting them to a place where they can share with you things that they maybe haven't shared before.
How do you do that, Tom? How do you create the space to build the trust? And what are you listening for to kind of nudge into? How do you actively listen in that situation?
It's so hard. I have a 5-point rubric that I use,
Okay,
and I'm
hit
going to
us with
see.
it.
I'm going to see how many of these I can remember after half of a beer. But I used to think that conversation was something that comes naturally and flows naturally. And then I realized that may be true for some people. That's not true for me. I need to prepare. I cannot just wing it. So, and what that means is just understanding the subject matter enough to ask intelligent questions and going out and finding out what somebody has already said. If you're interviewing a public figure, there's a really good chance that they've already given 10 interviews where they've outlined their view of whatever you want to talk about. Executive of a publicly traded company, they've been asked about why they're not profitable, why their sales are slowing down 20 times. They know how to answer that question. So going out and asking them that same question again is not going to yield something that's going to serve the audience. I make a real concerted effort to go and find out, okay, what have they said about this topic before, and build on that. I noticed you posted a photo of yourself climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. Let's talk about that. So preparing, that's a big part of it. Number 2, developing rapport with somebody.
Yeah.
It's hard to start from scratch. It's hard to get on stage with somebody with whom you've never had a conversation.
Wait, can we talk about building rapport? What does it look like to build rapport quickly?
In some instances, you might have a prep call. You might get on the phone with somebody beforehand and give them a sense of what you want to talk about. I don't ever share specific questions because I want the conversation to be spontaneous. I'm not an ambush guy. That's not the way I handle my interviews. I'm going to ask hard questions, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But by the same token, I want to give them a sense of where I'm coming from. Another thing is, there's really valuable time that you have. We were sitting outside, down having a beer before this. That's valuable time. So if that's the only few minutes that you have with somebody, take advantage of it. So here's something that I used to think that, like, I'm sort of backstage with this powerful executive or celebrity or whatever the case may be. And there's got to be this distance, and I want the conversation to be really spontaneous when we get on stage. Dude, relax. Have some banter backstage.
Yeah.
And so, and that may not come naturally to everyone. And it didn't always come naturally to me. And I would put all this energy into the questions I'm going to ask when the interview starts. Now I put a bunch of energy into the questions I'm going to ask before the interview starts.
Yeah, the vibes that you're bringing into the conversation.
Literally, sometimes 100%. I have to send a note to myself, like, okay, these are the questions you're going to ask on stage. These are the things this is the banter off stage. And I know that might sound really artificial. I know that might sound contrived, and I'm not trying to be contrived, but like, I have to remind myself, this CEO, she is really into her ranch in Wyoming. And I'm going to make sure that I talk to her about those goddamn horses. That she personally brands.
This conversation is a great example of that, right? For those who are listening, I had to strong arm Tom into this conversation because I'm like, you're a fascinating human. He's like, I don't think I'm your subject. I'm like, no, dude, you're a fascinating human. You've talked to literally the most globally renowned tech execs on the planet, past, present, and now future. You're having these conversations, and you're so used to flipping the mirror outward that when the mirror comes inward, it is uncomfortable. It
totally makes me uncomfortable. And you use questions to deflect attention away from yourself.
Easily. We all flip it to something that's more comfortable. But finding that place of connection is so important, so that you can let your guard down and the other person can let their guard down, and you can get to the point of the conversation.
I still don't think that my story is all that interesting, but it's really good to be able to just have a conversation with somebody and just be willing to be transparent and vulnerable. That's really hard. Vulnerability is really hard.
It's really hard. It's fun to get other people to do it, but it's really, really hard to do it.
I like it when I'm the one asking the questions.
Of course. You can ask questions here too, but wait, you were on point 2, right? It was like build rapport. Was there any others that you wanted to hit? We have to bring people through the 5 points.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You got to ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
You can't shy away from that. you lose your credibility as a journalist or as a curious, informed person if you don't ask the hard questions. And so getting off stage, ending an interview without asking somebody about the hard stuff of life, the hard stuff of their career, the ways that they have let down their shareholders or their customers or
Wait a minute.
their
I'm going to pause
fans.
you.
Okay.
What does it look like to then take the hard questions and flip them back on yourself? Is that an exercise that you've done?
I mean, it's some of the most incredibly difficult stuff that you do when somebody asks you the stuff that you go, God, I hope she doesn't ask me about that, but being able to be honest about it.
Yeah.
The funny thing about that, and I'm getting to a place in my life where it's easier to be honest about stuff that I thought I couldn't be honest about for a really long time.
I waited until just this moment to bring you on so that you could have this vulnerable moment with us.
And first of all, if people are going to be judgmental of you, F them, right?
Sure. Yes.
Right. And most of the time, and you're very choosy about who you choose to share intimate details and be vulnerable with. They're so thankful and they're so understanding and so empathetic. And then you find out, I have been struggling with that same thing for 15 years.
Yeah.
And you would never have known that until you decided or you felt comfortable enough to be vulnerable with that.
Yeah. It opens up a whole world of connection.
Yeah. And that's a good segue to one of the last 2 points. This idea of staying in the conversation. You asked something about this earlier because it's easy to kind of be on stage and be like, I have 10 questions. I need to get to every damn one of these questions. Sometimes it's a really great idea to just listen and say, oh, wait, you know what? They said something off cue. They went off script. I want to drill down on that.
Yeah.
And you are making choices. You know what?
Yeah.
If I'm going to have Courtney talk about this for the next couple of minutes, I might have to sacrifice one of my precious questions that I spent so much time preparing for.
Yeah.
But she's onto something really interesting. So I'm going to drill down on that. So point 4, I guess, is, don't be afraid to ask dumb questions and be the advocate for the audience. So don't be afraid to say, what I hear you saying is this. Is this what you mean? Or maybe can you elaborate on that? Or I'm not sure I fully understand the point you're trying to make. Can you rephrase it? Don't be afraid. You do not have to be the smartest guy in the room. And then the last thing, just be curious.
Yeah.
Be genuinely curious and genuinely want to know about the subject matter. You cannot fake your way to curiosity. You got to care. Yeah. You got to want to know, I really do genuinely care about you. I want to hear about how your career is going, where you've hit roadblocks, how you've overcome them. I want to hear about your family. I want to hear about your successes. I'm just genuinely curious. If you're not genuinely curious, I think that shows.
What I heard you say is look for cracks. Look for cracks in the conversation, either if the conversation is with yourself, if you're asking yourself the hard questions, or with someone you love, which isn't where you wanted to go necessarily or where you thought the conversation would go. And that curiosity feeds into probably some thread to uncover the next truth or the next opportunity for conversation.
And you got to find the surprise.
Yeah.
You got to find where they go off script. Oh, you know what? They're going to get in trouble with their media relations person because they started talking about something.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to talk about it. And again, you're not trying to be gotcha, but you're just like, oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on that? I want to hear more about that.
Yep. Okay. I've already sort of flipped a notebook on you. When I think of a journalist, I think of that little notebook and all the hot tips that you're taking in conversation. But I want to flip that back on you, or flip the mirror back on you, because when I asked you to do this, you were like, ugh, I already said it, not your guy. I don't think I have anything to say. I don't think I'm that interesting.
Yeah.
But you are. To put you at ease that you're not the only one in this booth that feels that same way. When it came to launching this podcast, I was like, why me? Why? And I've asked you this question before, actually, in ALF and our leadership fellowship. Who am I? Who am I to do this? Right? And it sounds like you were dealing with a little bit of who am I? Who am I to volunteer myself for something like this or have a perspective? So tell me what went through your mind when I was like, hey, Tom, let's sit down and have a conversation about you.
What went through my mind was, There are so many other vastly more interesting people out there. Target them, and I'll give you a list of 10.
I'll ask you for that list after this.
All of whom we know in common,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Um, I have struggled and continue to struggle with imposter syndrome all the time. I grew up, lower middle class, Los Angeles, going to Ivy
Did you
League
go to
school.
Princeton?
I went to Princeton, and that was like a 4-year immersion in imposter syndrome. This leadership fellowship that we were, American Leadership Forum, Silicon Valley, that we were part of, spent an entire year in rooms with people like you. We know, not to drop names, but we know some people who have like gone on and hold public office and whose names you'd recognize, and people who are running companies and these nonprofits that are doing such important, great work.
Yeah.
And I'm in awe of them. And the idea that I'd be in a room with them and that they would get something from me, I'm like, what do I have to offer? I want to learn from you. I don't know where the imposter syndrome comes from, but growing up with this sense of I'm going to learn from other people and I have less to impart to them. I manage a team of 90 reporters around the world. And one of the things I enjoy most about my job is getting to spend one-on-one time with reporters. And my question that I walk into a room with them, and my first question is, what are you excited about? And I get so much energy from hearing them talk about what gives them energy, what gives them excitement. And the other place where I've started to kind of think differently is, you mentioned I teach a business journalism class at Cal, and I am so incredibly excited about having the opportunity to be able to be in a room with these young people who are just starting out in their business journalism career, and being able to feed off of their excitement and their curiosity, and maybe have a couple of things to say along the way that they can learn from.
If you were to kind of give a hot tip to one of the students in your class or a group of people that you love to say, here's what I've learned. I've had conversations with the most interesting folks on the planet. What's something that you've taken that has shaped your perspective on possibility, leadership, showing up? You pick your topic, but like, what's one thing that you've taken with you that's been formative?
People who, when they encounter a challenge, when they encounter something that is seemingly insurmountable, approaching it not with, I've got this figured out, but approaching it with a sense of humility and a sense of like genuine curiosity.
Yeah.
We talk to a lot of CEOs who, come into their job, and they spend a lot of the first couple of months. They talk about listening tours. And I think that, spending time with people and listening to what their needs are, what their challenges are, whether that's a client, a customer. In my case, it's the people who are on my teams, sitting down with them and listening, spending more time hearing and less time talking. When I find myself saying too many words, I have to check myself and say, let them talk and take notes and be attentive. Something I've learned is people who will approach a problem and spend a good amount of time at the beginning, like just like listening, diagnosing, and not necessarily having the answer. Many times I will go into a problem and go into a room, and I know I can already tell how to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Before, like, the person will say 5 words, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this. I'm going to put this into this box.
Yeah.
I know the solution already. And you know what? A lot of times that's not the right approach. That's not the right answer.
Well, it just gets you more of the same.
Probably. My tendency is to very, very quickly say, I know how to deal with it. I've been here before. This is not my first rodeo. I learned so much from taking those problems or challenges, going to my trusted colleagues and saying, what would you do here?
Yeah.
How would you resolve this? And incorporating that
Yeah.
makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. And it opens your perspective as to what's possible. I want to talk about identity for a minute, because when you and I were having our prep call, I felt your resistance to this conversation. And I was like, I feel like you're straddling 2 identities. Remember that? I feel like you're straddling 2 identities, your professional self and then your personal self. And what have you noticed about identity and how that impacts how someone shows up to a conversation?
We're in a period where there's a lot of executives, entrepreneurs, CEOs who have kind of embarked on their career or built their businesses around a particular identity. And you've seen a lot of people kind of like just shift.
Mm.
We have yet to see exactly how that's going to pan out for them and how history will judge that kind of thing. So I use that just an example of it's really easy in your career to think about, okay, am I going to be the person that someone else wants me to be, or am I going to be the person who I know I I truly am?
Yeah, wait, say that again.
It's really easy in a career
Yeah. Or
to
in life.
in life,
Yep.
whatever the case may be, to bend toward what I think
Mm.
my boss, my investors,
My
uh, my
parents,
shareholders, my parents, maybe my faith construct
all of it.
want me to
Yeah.
be, and I'm gonna shape myself and mold myself in that image versus who am I at my core. And
Hmm.
look, I mean, we all need to we all need to stretch ourselves and alter and shapeshift, code switch to some degree to stay alive in some instances. And in other instances, it's like, yeah, actually, I need to be less of an asshole, or I need to be less selfish. I need to be a better listener.
Hmm.
And I have these other people who are giving me good guidance. So I'm not saying like just resist what your boss or your investors ask you to do. Sometimes you got to really listen to them. There are times, however, when it's important for you to remember what is your true north. What's my core identity? Who am I? And what are the things I'm going to compromise on versus the things that I'm going to hold true
Yeah.
to? And that's really hard.
Yeah.
It really is hard. And we can get lost in shapeshifting, right? And we all do that.
100%.
Again, some of it's good, some of it's really unhealthy, and some of it gets you to like the end of the day or
Yeah.
who am I at my
Yeah.
core? And
Yeah.
have I shifted so much depending on who's occupying the White House or whatever the case may be
Yeah.
that I've lost a sense of who I truly am and what I
Yeah.
really truly stand for?
Yeah. Knowing those answers in advance, or at least having a position on them, and continually coming back and asking yourself those questions so that you can recenter. It's harder when you're leading a public company or a company that's scaling very quickly with a board. It's also hard to do it as an individual. And how have you reapplied for yourself the practice of self interrogation to make sure that you were kind of firing in the direction that is in alignment with the path that you had hoped to follow, but making sure that it was intentional?
I like to have markers,
Mhm.
touchstones, right? The kinds of things that like draw you back to those first principles that you decide that you want to live by. I feel like I'm intellectually curious. And so I always document what I'm reading, how many books I'm reading. And it's not a contest. And getting to the end of a year and being like, oh, I'm not reading as much. Why is that? What's the thing that you hold out there as your yardstick for knowing, am I living according to the beliefs and ideas that I hold dear? It's also having people in your life who can remind you of
Yeah.
of what's true and what's important. And again, there are times when you gotta there are things you gotta leave behind.
Yep.
I over indexed on that aspect of intellectual curiosity, but I underdeveloped my EQ. I'm gonna find a new yardstick. Not to bring it back to scuba, but the thing that's really great about scuba is this, kind of coming back to this place of peace
Mm.
and tranquility, and you could call it escape, knowing that underwater, being in the water, moving, shutting everything else out brought me so much joy and peace, and finding a way back into that's healthy, that's good.
Returning to what you know to bring you centered. I'm really interested in the concept of community. As we look down the lens of where this world is headed, increasingly automated, increasingly artificial
Mhm,
in its intelligence, there is also a similar path that opens up for like a human renaissance for us to connect to what makes us more alive.
mhm,
As you look at the now and the near future,
mhm.
what role does community play? Does it change?
I think it becomes more important in a world where it is going to be a lot easier for us to outsource our intellect,
Mm-hmm.
outsource how we learn, how we analyze, outsource how we communicate with other people. We recently ran a story about how people are using ChatGPT and other tools to formulate their responses
Mm.
on dating apps.
Mm.
Chat fishing, I think it's called.
Catfishing?
Chat fishing, not catfishing,
Oh,
chat fishing.
shit.
Right, right. I mean, we can post an image of ourselves, but like not after I brush it up with using the AI. So I think anything that helps us be in touch with who we really are, and I know that sounds kind of cliche, but like something that strips away all of the ways that we're relying on stuff to prop us up. And AI makes it really easy to do that.
To reinforce
And
whatever narrative you're building.
anything that draws us back into who we truly are. I think community, wherever you find it, whether it's a group of friends, a faith community, your family, I think that's going to become more important and harder to tap into. And just be your genuine self is so stinking easy to fake it.
Wait a minute. Are we pivoting towards a society that raises its glass to imperfection? Do you think that could be it?
We should.
Oh my God, that's
We
great.
should.
First
People
in
be
line.
toasting to my ass all the
man,
time.
I'll toast you, Tom. I'll toast your imperfectness.
Imperfection.
Okay, let's cheers to
Gee.
imperfection really quickly.
Yeah. Mm.
That one was to imperfection. Okay, look, I have two more questions for you. As someone who has built a career around asking consequential questions of important voices in society, what is one consequential question that you're asking of yourself right now?
So I have a few more years of my career left, like a good number of years, but I'm not at the stage where I was 10, 20, 30 years ago, where I had this seemingly infinite number of years ahead of me in my career. I can look forward and go, okay, I can start asking some hard questions about how many more years I am going to continue to conceive of my career the way I have historically. That raises some important questions about like, okay, how am I going to use this time? Time is super valuable. 20, 30 years ago, you could, feel your way around in the dark a lot more. I don't have that luxury anymore.
So what's worth my time, energy, and effort is what you're asking yourself at this point.
A lot more.
Okay. And one more question for you. As you look across the landscape of your life and where you are at this juncture, is there something that you still want in your life that you haven't said out loud yet?
Yes and no. It's possible that I may want to write a book or a couple of books. Haven't written a book yet. I've written a lot of articles. I've written, written a lot.
Would the book be a departure from what you've done previously, or would it be a continuation?
I think it would be, I think I might have more than one book. One may be very much a continuation. One may be a departure.
Love this for you.
That said, I really relish the role that I play, which is leading teams, mentoring journalists, providing support and scaffolding for people to advance and get better and better at what they do. I really relish that. And I don't necessarily want to depart from that anytime soon. So there's a tension between, do I embark on this project that would take me away from this for a while? Maybe, and maybe not. And I'm waiting for the universe to show me a sign.
Oh my God. I'll tell you about the signs I got today later, but like
thunderclap. Yeah. I need some thunder.
And I think that's the point. Like, you going after a book or sitting down for this conversation, it takes stepping out of what's comfortable to move towards what you feel you're being called to, or maybe have been called to for a while, and are just honoring without knowing exactly the direction of it. And there's something about exploring a piece of yourself just for the sheer pleasure of experiencing it and exploring it.
But is there a part of you that doesn't want to know where it's headed? Because if you know too much about where it's headed, aren't you worried that you'll start tapping the brakes?
Oh God, that's such a great question. Sometimes when I get on a momentum roll, I'll start to tap the brakes or like sabotage myself because I feel like it's picking up really quickly. And if I know where this is headed and it's bigger than I imagine or even smaller than I imagine, I might redirect the cart before the time is right.
Yeah.
And then you rob yourself of the journey that you're supposed to be on in the moment.
It's like skiing.
Yeah.
You get some speed and you know you're
Yeah.
capable of skiing that fast, but you still, for whatever reason, start
Yeah.
to start making little turns, tapping the
Yeah.
brakes a little bit.
Let it be. Let it
Ski
roll.
down the hill.
Ski down the hill. You just have to keep going. I asked myself a long time ago in the spirit of hard questions, what's my relationship with momentum? Sometimes I sabotage momentum. When do I start to interfere with momentum? I've spent a lot of time on that because I've really fucked up my flow by tapping the brakes or taking unnecessary turns.
What is that thing? What is that thing in us
Mm.
that makes us do that? That
Mm.
forces us to slow down. You're gaining momentum. You're succeeding. You're having too much fun.
God, fun is so great. And sometimes I think our momentum picks up before our identity can catch up. The gap between who you are today and where you're going, the speed that happens in closing that gap is really unnerving because you start to get that momentum and you're like, holy shit, I'm like going to hit my destination much faster than I thought. I'm going to blow past it. And I think that that's something to check in yourself. Look, Tom, is there anything that we haven't covered that you wanted to hit today that you felt was important?
I think you've touched on a lot of stuff. Pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Oh, good.
Made me cross my arms at least once.
Oh, good. Is that your tell?
That was
Crossed arm
I
is
was
a
like,
tell?
oh,
I
shit.
got to roll the tape back.
She's starting to ask uncomfortable questions.
And you blocked by crossing your
Yeah,
arms.
but I answered anyway.
You did. You pressed through it. You kept skiing down that hill.
I kept skiing down the hill.
Okay. Well, look, I want to thank you for coming down here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, for someone who is spending so much time being cognizant about where he spends his hours and his days and his energy, I want to thank you for getting in this booth and having this conversation with me. I know it was beneficial for me. I know it's going to be beneficial for our community, and I look forward to more to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers to us.
Cheers.
Thanks for spending time with us. Follow me on Instagram at fullwattage.co and let me know what stayed with you. Know someone who loved this conversation? Send it their way. And if you haven't already, follow and review the Full Wattage Show so you never miss an episode. This is Full Wattage. I'm Courtney Carnes. See you next time.